evening and welcome once again to this Thursday night, this open door show from Property CEO. My name is Richie Clapson, in case you didn't know. It's on the bottom of the screen, so if you didn't know, you could read it. And I'm here with the other half of Property CEO, Mr. Ian Child. You want to say good evening, Mr. Ian Child?
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're well. Thank you for joining us.
Ah, look at that. Very polite, isn't he? Look, guys, it's great to have you with us. And over the next 45 minutes, we're going to be taking a deep dive, as always, into the world of small-scale property development. Isn't that right, Ian?
Certainly is. We're going to be covering some of the latest news items, certainly talking to some of the movers and shakers out there, giving a bit of an inside track into what's happening in the world of property. And also going to be shining spotlight on any areas we think could be a good opportunity for new developers to take a look at.
Absolutely. But above all, okay, and this is important, guys, above all, you're going to write this down, grab a pen and paper. Above all, we're going to have some fun. This is what it's about. It's only 45 minutes. It's got to be a bit of fun. Most webinar shows are a bit boring. We've got to have a bit of fun here because life is far too short not to. But we need you to join in. Okay, it's a question and answer show. So please put your questions and comments. Make them polite, please. I know some of you don't, and I know who you are, and okay, I'm keeping my eye on you in the chat box, and I'm going to see what comes in. Okay, and I can dismiss you. I have the control. But hopefully we will try and get all those questions answered in the show. So Ian, what's coming up this evening? What's going to happen?
Well, tonight we're going to be talking to our favourite auctioneer, the legend himself, that is Mr. Russell Hartnell-Parker from Fox and Sons Auctioneers. So Russell's going to be giving us a lowdown on what's been happening in the auction rooms over the last few months, and also I think how he sees that market developing. And I'm sure if we ask him really nicely, he'll come up with a few great tips on how we can go about bagging a bargain in the auction room. So please, as Richie said, make sure that you ping your questions into the chat box and we'll fire them at him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He didn't know he was our favourite, but I think we can run with that. I think we can run with that. We don't have to tell him anything else. I mean, we just tell him he's our favourite and he will believe it, I am sure. So who have we got on this evening? Let's have a look. Ron's just joined. Hello, Ron. Callum's on. Michael's on. Good evening, Michael. Ranjit, Dan, Eldo, Sue, Jack's on. Patience is on. Hello, Patience. Jolion's on. Damien's on. Good evening, Damien. Solomon's on. Hello, Solomon. Nice to see you again. I've got to get this one right. It's a Zomba. I don't know if I've got that right. Maybe I've pronounced that wrong. Harvey's on. Harjinder's on. Sarah's on. Josh is on. Hello, Will. He's on as well. And Emily and Sadie. Good evening to you. Good evening, guys, says Callan. Oh, Callan, good evening to you. Dan says, good evening, gents. Oh, that's very nice of him as well. Sarah says, great to be here again once more with the A-team. And Harjinder says, good to see you guys. Looking forward to listening to Russell this evening. What about us? What about us? And Ranjit's on. Ranjit. He says, good evening, Richie, Ian, and the lovely attendees of Property CEO. Ranjit Singh here from Property Investor News. I think that's a magazine, isn't it? Is it? I've heard about it. I've heard of it, guys. Maybe it's worth a read. Definitely check it out. I think it would be good. I would definitely have a read of that. Anyway, so look, before we get Russell on, before we do that, Ian, have we got any news items? You always like to do news items at the top of the show. Have we got some news items?
We love to do news items at the top of the show. So I've got three for you today.
Let's go for it.
So the first one out of the blocks, this is from Building Magazine. A newly created committee in the House of Lords has launched an inquiry to look at ways of removing barriers to meeting housing demand. So a wide-ranging inquiry looking at the factors that shape the tenure and quality of housing needed across the UK, and they're going to attempt to answer 11 questions. Doesn't say that it's multiple choice. I know, here we go. Well, I can read out two of them, which are probably the most relevant ones in many respects. So, is the government's target of 300,000 new homes a year accurate? Because let's be honest, that figure's been around for about 20 years. And is it achievable? And then question 7, the government has published its proposals for reform of the planning system. How can the planning system be shaped to meet housing demand? And they've included there, what role should permitted development rights play in this? And how might changes to Section 106 agreements shape the provision of social housing? So I don't think that's going to happen. They're going to say anything much in very soon, but that's happening in the background. I've got a couple of ones here on the planning side here. So interesting one here, the government's ambition is to create some more areas of outstanding natural beauty across the UK. So the ultimate goal is to protect 30% of England's land. They've earmarked Yorkshire Wold, Cheshire Sandstone Ridge, and then extending the Surrey Hills and Chilterns. They're the ones that are on the list. Apparently, we already have 34 AONBs and 10 national parks. So the goal is 35. To get.
It's 35 because I can tell you my wife does a fantastic job in our garden. I don't do a thing, but she reckons it's an area of outstanding natural beauty.
Right. Fantastic. I heard it here. I didn't mention that, but
okay.
And then the second part in the in Planning Magazine. Now this could be actually handy if you've got a greenhouse in the garden, because a planning inspector accepted eventually permitted development conversion of a greenhouse into a family home. What about that? A planning inspector has allowed an appeal by a Somerset couple seeking to turn a commercial greenhouse into a home after concluding that their scheme comprised a conversion rather than a rebuild. So they talk about Class Q. Those of you might be familiar with the permitted development right that is Class Q, about converting agricultural buildings into accommodation. And despite the local planning authority initially pushing back, they got it overturned. So if you're casting an eye down the bottom of the garden and you've got a greenhouse that's on the large side, yeah, maybe worth a talk to the council.
I've heard about that one. I have heard about that one, but who wants to sleep in a grow bag? Okay. Well, let's bring our guest on because he's hopefully there. Now he is, as Ian said, he is our favourite auctioneer. Okay, he's our favourite auctioneer. There's absolutely no doubt about that. He's a great guy, actually. I've known him for a long, long time. That means he's quite old, like me. But you'll see that when his camera comes on in a minute. But he does know a thing or two about auctions. So he's been around the block, and perhaps he can tell us what's going on with auctions, particularly 2020, 2021. It's been an interesting time. So let's see if Russell is here. Russell, are you there? Can you hear us?
I certainly can, Ian.
Oh, good stuff. Well, actually, that was Richie, not Ian, but I'll let you off for that one. But can you turn your camera on for me, Russell? There we go. Good stuff. You said I was Ian, but I'm not. Okay.
Easy.
Okay, guys, can you give us a wave if you can see and hear Russell for me, please? Give us a wave. Yes, lots of hands going up. Russell, welcome to the show. It's been some time since you were on, and I do recall last time you were on, you came on with your pink shirt, and I think it was I think it suited you, but I think I can say honestly and without any hesitation, any colour suits you.
You're very kind, Ian, and it was coral. We had this discussion. It was coral.
You called me Ian again.
I don't know. Do you know why it is? It's because Ian's picture is at the top, and it's quite imposing. You're down in the bottom left-hand corner of my screen, Rich.
I tell you what we do, Russell. We have two strikes and you're out. I'm going to give you one more chance. That's all.
Okay, that's no problem, Bob.
Thank you very much, Simon. Okay, so Russell, who's not our favourite planning consultant, clearly is out of favour. Russell works for the national company Fox and Sons. He is a fantastic auctioneer. I've been in the auction room with him. He knows his stuff. I don't think he bounces off the wall. I'm not sure what he does. But Russell, do you want to introduce yourself, what you're about, what your company does, and then maybe you could tell us a little bit about what's going on in the auction world. And whilst Russell's doing that, please pop your questions in so we can fire some questions. Russell, over to you.
Well, thanks very much indeed, Rich. It's been an interesting year because obviously, like everybody, we've had to invent the wheel very quickly. So your traditional auction rooms, which is really where I sort of prefer to operate, have become online. So, you know, we've kind of moved across to what I would class as the eBay of property sales. So love or hate it, I've become a computer operator as opposed to standing on the rostrum looking out at 200-300 friendly faces and working a room. So yeah. I have to say the day when we can go back to that is very clearly looked forwarded to by many of us auctioneers, to be honest. I thought I'd give you a little insight as to what's been happening within the industry, because we've really been caught up in quite a frenetic period where the residential markets have flourished, you know, probably to the maximum levels of affordability with the stamp duty holiday, which actually finished yesterday. Yes. And I say that to every lawyer in the country who will probably either be getting very drunk today or booking into the Marchwood Priory.
Yeah.
It really has been a challenging time. So I think we've obviously sort of had a very artificial marketplace that's been operating. Within my business, really, that has capitalized with a lot of the homes that need renovation sort of proving to be the very popular lots still. If I wind the clock back 5 years ago, flats were really the foundation of our business. You know, if we had 10, 15 flats, we sold 10, 15 flats. You know, being really honest with you, you know, they are the things that have kind of become a lot harder to sell, where the margins and yield returns have had to be that much healthier for you, the buyer, and not necessarily in favor of the seller. And I think that's really down to two things. You know, firstly, the 3% property tax for being a second homeowner is a cost that people have had to absorb. We factor that within our appraisals when we sit down and talk to people. And I think also for a lot of people who are single investors buying in their own name, the taxation of the rental income, you know, being added to your own personal income, no taper relief. I think that singularly has probably been one of the biggest blows that we've seen drive your one or two property pension fund, you know, forward thinking buyer to being a little bit more hesitant, really. So it's been a strange sort of 12, 18 months, to be honest. I will say it's opened the door to a lot more of the national buyers being able to access some of the local markets. If you think as a traditional auction buyer, you might flip through a catalogue. You might find 4 or 5 things in Southampton or Hampshire or Bournemouth, wherever your operation is, you quite like. But then you might just turn that page, you know, and see that little 2-bed semi in Taunton that looks a bit cheap. It's given you the ability to be able to almost react instantaneously to what you think might look, you know, as a good deal. It's given you the ability to sit at your computer and go, do you know what, I like that. I'm going to go and actually have a little nibble on that and see where we go. So it's been beneficial. We've lost a little bit of the identity of being able to talk to people, you know, stand on the rostrum, look someone in the eye, you know, get a feel for where that person's journey might go with you on that day. But, you know, again, I think it's given sellers a platform to still operate from. It's given buyers a very, very flexible platform to utilize. And I think overall, I think it was the inevitable that we saw coming in our business. It's just been accelerated. It's just been brought to the forum for auctioneers a bit quicker than perhaps it would have evolved with the rooms still in operation. So, you know, that's kind of what's happened in the last sort of 18 months in terms of the operation of the business. I thought I'd just give you guys a bit of an insight, because a lot of you have given us calls, you know, and with a level of confusion over the traditional auction process and this new modern method of auction that people have been talking about recently. The two platforms are very different, and buyers need to understand that, because the traditional auction is still very much more geared for the professional, the organized buyer, the cash buyer, someone who is quite prepared to operate quite quickly. Whereas the modern method of auction has really sort of evolved over giving perhaps mortgage related buyers or a seller who might have a potential onward purchase they wish to tie in, the opportunity to still take a property to auction and sell it that way. I think from a buyer's point of view, just be aware that the two contractual obligations are very different. Traditional auction day, you win, you pay a 10% deposit, you have legally exchanged, you complete 20 business days later. That's the standard terms. So you do have to be very organized. If you look at the modern method, you bid like you would do in a normal auction if you're the winning bid. You then have to pay really what is seen as a reservation fee. It's not the contractual 10% deposit, it's an actual reservation fee. And that reservation fee may be a minimum £6,000-7,000, whichever the auctioneer is operating the platform dictates, or it may be 4.2. You know, I've seen rates from anything from 4 to 6% of the purchase price paid as a reservation fee. But the critical part on that, guys, is those reservation fees are paid on top of the purchase price. So they're not deductible. They're actually charged on top of the purchase price, which is a big difference.
Big lump.
Buying a property at 300 grand with a 4.2% reservation fee, you know, that's a lot of money. 12 and a bit £1,000 on top of the contracted price you've agreed to pay, which people have to start getting used to. That, you know, that is there. And more so, be aware, believe it or not, that reservation fee is actually, I understand, to be a stamp duty qualifying payment. So it's not exempt of stamp duty.
So you get hit twice then?
Yeah. You're paying, you're actually paying for the seller's fees. So, you know, the auctioneers are earning a good level of money from that, because in fairness, that money goes to the auctioneers. The seller doesn't see any penny of that. But the benefit being is that process does give you 56 days to effectively come up with an exchange and a completion. So if you are trying to finance a property, it does give you a little bit extra time, which really brings me to some key points that we're now starting to see within our business, proving to be hurdles to overcome. And that is literally, they go hand in hand. It's lawyers and mortgage companies. The mortgage companies are reliant on the lawyer to give a clean report on title, to say, yeah, we're happy to lend on that, no problem. Well, I'm sure there are some of your, you know, webinar viewers right now who are already experienced the fun and games of the last few months, or are ongoing with lawyers. It's been a testing time, incredibly testing time. And how many have failed to meet the duty deadline of yesterday, I don't think we'll truly know until, you know, the next week, 10 days, 2 weeks start to unfold. But again, if I sort of just talk about the traditional side of things, some of the challenges that we're having to overcome now, which will be reflective in what your client base, Rich, will have to also take on board. A lot of the online auctions are now taking place every 4 weeks. Now, for those of you that have experienced the legal system, you know, today, or in fact tomorrow, I close for my auction on the 28th of July. So that will be the 2nd of July. I've got 26 days, including weekends, to get a legal pack ready. Things like local searches are going to be missing. You're not going to get a local search back from a lot of local authorities in, you know, what is 2-3 weeks. So from a buyer's point of view, just be prepared that you're going to look at a legal pack, and the first thing you're going to notice that not every single legal pack will have a local search. So again, just make sure you know what you're buying and you've done your diligence and homework. I don't think a search is something that will tell you everything you really want to know. I mean, you know, I'm sure there's many out there who will say, well, when they looked at their local search, it really didn't tell them a great deal. But every now and then, I will say, there might be the odd entry in the search or the planning register, or something happening in the area that you may not be aware of. So just please understand that there might be things you need to factor in when you're doing your due diligence.
I like that. That's good advice, Russell. That's good. That's good advice. So we've got one or two more tips, and then we can get into some questions. I can see the questions piling in. So what have we got? Do you want to give us another quick tip?
Yeah, the other thing that's changing is money laundering. The criteria about money laundering and the documents and the information you need to start supplying. Get used to the fact that you will now be questioned by almost everyone in property, from the lawyer to us, to provide that information. We run an online ID system called CREDAS, which literally is, we send you an invite, you upload your passport, your driver's license, your proof of address, and the system will actually go into all the various databases and verify you are who you say you are. So, get used to that, everybody, because that is going to become, part and parcel of almost everyday business now. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, when it comes to registering to be a bidder online, there is a requirement now where a lot of auctioneers are going to ask you to put in what's called a phantom deposit of $6,150 to enable you to bid. Now, that is to cover the £5,000 minimum deposit that we require on lots. We require 10%, or lots under 50, a minimum £5,000, and the auction premium, the buyer's premium of £1,150. And that is applicable per lot. So again, you have to get yourself ready and organised, both legally and financially, to really give yourself a chance in the auction room today. So, just a few little subtle changes that are taking place that we're having to evolve because of either buyers abusing the system or challenging the system, and the requirements of HMRC to tick all the boxes about money laundering, which is a real hot topic in our business today.
Oh, good stuff. Well, that's some good points. And guys out there, I hope you've made some notes of that and listened to that. Russell knows his stuff, so that is really good advice. Russell, you ready to take a few questions from the floor?
Absolutely. Fire away.
Yeah, what have we got? What can we kick off with?
Okay, we've got one in from Damien. Good evening, Damien. Who asks, why? Where has it gone? It's here somewhere. When do you think we will go back to in-the-room auctions?
Oh, so will we go back? Yeah.
Good question. The $1 million question, Damien. I would hope possibly we may start to see things return to normal. I think more towards the end of the year. I think in our planning, we didn't see any room auctions taking place prior to September. I think, like a lot of businesses, we've had to remain fairly fluid in how we approach this, based on vaccinations, the health risks to people. So possibly the end of year, but you may find a lot of businesses may take the viewpoint that they're quite happy to operate an online platform. I would ask you guys, and perhaps you could just do a quick poll. What do you guys want? Because we're reactive to you. What have you found, beneficial? Do you want to go and travel to an auction, or would you prefer to sit in the comfort of your own home with your computer there and bid that way? Please tell me. We're listening to you.
I'll tell you what, Russell, let's do a show of hands, guys. I'm not going to count them up, but just a rough show. So hands up if not yet. People, Paul, put your hand down. I haven't even told you what I'm going to ask you yet. Thank you. They're putting their hands up already. So put your hand up if you would like to go back into an actual auction room. Put your hands up for that. Okay, I'm just trying to get a feel for it. Okay, thank you. And then I'm going to drop all those hands. Now put your hand up if you prefer online auctions. Well, I can tell you the majority is online auctions.
Yeah.
And one person that voted for both.
My sentiments, I was very anti-online. Being an auctioneer and a bit of a showman, auction day was my day. But
of course, yeah.
I have to say my whole attitude has changed. I think it gives people a bit more flexibility.
Yeah. Nice. Well, look, there's a little vote. I didn't count them up, but I think that was fairly unanimous. Okay. Here's a question from Ash. Ash says, so good evening, Ash. He says, is it possible to make a pre-auction offer through the auctioneer to try and secure a property before the auction?
Yes, Ash, in fact, you can. If you look at what we auctioned, we had 12 lots in the last Southampton, which bearing in mind when we were traditional auctioneers, we were doing 20 to 30 every 6 weeks, on local basis. Every 4 weeks, we're doing 10 to 15, which some people will say doesn't sound a lot. What I would say to you, join me for a couple of weeks and see how many we have to get to talk to find 10, 12 decent auction lots. You'd be quite surprised. So the answer is yes. When a client is making a decision on their own asset, and I use Richie as an example, if Richie owns something, I've got an offer under auction contract terms and go, Rich, this is the offer, what do you want to do? And he says, yeah, I'm happy with that, sell it. That's an easy decision. That's Richie's decision. Where it gets a bit more difficult is when we're selling for executors, power of attorneys, or distressed stroke vulnerable clients, where we have to be seen publicly to cover best price, best practice, and the transparency of the room. That's when you're going to have to literally be prepared to register and bid online. But always talk to us. I've said many times, and the guys who were on the last webinar would have remembered me saying, talk to us. We're not the enemy. Communicate with us. Yeah, I know.
Even when he wears coral, he's not the enemy.
Absolutely. Yeah. The more you talk to the auctioneer, the more information you'll get. Don't be frightened to pick the phone up and have a conversation with us. We will tell you sincerely what we know and what we think the outcome is likely to be.
Okay. Excellent. Ash, hope that's answered your question. Ian, what's next?
I got one in from Paul, who asks, can you explain the difference between guide and reserve price? Sometimes it can be confusing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the mystery of guide and reserve has become a lot clearer. The guide price is the figure that the property has been guided at. Stating the obvious there, I know, but that's the figure that the general public see. The reserve is a confidential figure at which the property will not be sold below. But there are strict guidelines. And I use an example. If you've got a property guided at 100,000 plus, then the reserve will not be any higher than 110. There is a 10% margin between guide and reserve, which is law. Now, if we do have a situation where we've guided a property at 100 and we've had so much interest, we've had offers of 130, 140, we do have the ability to increase the reserve to protect the seller's interest. But in doing so, we will probably increase the guide price prior to the sale to reflect that. And we will send out notification of that happening to everyone we know who's interested. So that is the key thing. It is actually guidance and law now that you cannot have a reserve any more than a maximum 10% above guide.
Okay.
Fantastic, Paul. Hope that helps. Hope that answers your question. Richie.
I've got a question.
I will say they're not always.
I've got a question for Raj, and this is an interesting one. And I think if I can interpret this correctly, it says, hello, A-Team and Russell. Having followed the auction circus online during lockdown, can you explain why people would pay the value of the property, meaning the auction price plus the refurb, i.e. full market value of the property? Why not buy one already refurbished for the same price, which is good to go? I think that Raj's question there is, perhaps sometimes you see properties go for far more than what you think it's actually worth once it's all refurbed and done up. So why not just buy one done up? What happens in the auction room or online that makes people go and buy things for more money?
I wish I knew the answer to that, Richie. I think I can say sometimes there is a competitive element where people get, certainly I would say in the auction room, it was very clear. Quite often you'd have people with an agenda. It might be an investment agenda. It might be a personal agenda. I've had property where family and friends or close friends have ended up coming out being the buyers because their aunt, their nan, or a family member may live in the road or very next door. I've had people who have paid over the odds for something because they are buying that property to protect what they already own. Now, that happens quite regularly with land. If we get a scrub parcel of land or something that's perhaps a little controversial and you live next door, your agenda to purchase that may be considerably higher than someone who just wants to graze a pony on it. So, you're buying that land not just because you might find a use for it, but you're protecting your own asset from an undesirable use next door. But to be fair, Raj, I can only put it down to competitive tension, you know, people getting a bit carried away. They've come to an auction, they've made their mind up, they're going to buy it, and they're buying it, come whatever.
And sometimes there are really good auctioneers who are really good at just teasing that out of people. But isn't that your job? So we can't criticize. Well, I do think, guys, if you're going to go to an auction, we always say to our students, anyone that we train, it's, you know, absolutely set your number and do not go above that, because you will get emotionally attached. You'll be in that room, and that's just what we're like. We want it. We've made our mind up. It's a great opportunity. So you've got to know your number to walk away. Okay, Raj, hopefully that's answered your question. Paul says, thank you for the question we gave earlier. Ash was asking about pre-auctions. He said, thank you for that, Russell. I will make contact with my auctioneer. So maybe that's not you. Maybe you're not in his area. But that, Ash, that's good. Ian, what's next?
Got one here from Harjinder. In your opinion, what is the best bidding strategy? All the trade secrets coming out now.
I think Richie's touched on it, really. You've got to know where your number is, what works for you. If I could give any tip and advice to anyone who's going to an auction for the first time, don't get emotionally carried away. You know, do your due diligence, know where it works for you. But I'll add something too, and this is perhaps a little controversial. I've asked many a first-time attendee, what do you want from that property? And they go, right, okay. And they go, how do you mean? Right, what do you want to earn from this property? You're going to rent it, you're going to refurb it and flip it and sell it for profit. What do you want? The most common mistake is quite often the first timer is looking for a profit margin that's unrealistic. And I'll give you an example. Somebody was looking at a property with me recently, 200 grand. They thought they wanted to make £50,000 profit after the refurb. Now, the property had a limited ceiling value. They were never, ever going to be in with a chance of making 50 grand profit. You've got to start small and build up. If you want to make the big numbers, you've got to spend more money, take more risk. Your standard refurbs, the margins of profit really are going to be 20, 25 if you have a good one. If you have a marginal one, it might be 10 or 15. But a profit's a profit, and it's a learning curve. So treat those learning curves as pigeon steps until you move up into the big hitters where you can put more in and take more out. That's you know, a key piece of advice I think you need to take on board.
Fantastic. Harjinder, there you go. Controversial and to the point. Richie.
Well, yeah, he's always to the point. I mean, he doesn't mince his words, does our Russell, does he? Anyway, let's look. Claire says, does the auctioneer, that's you, Russell, does the auctioneer always determine the incremental bid size? That's interesting. You often hear, or you watch an auction and you think, hang on, it's going up in 2000s. Why can't I put it up in thousands? How does that get determined?
You're quite right, Claire. It is the auctioneer who will decide the increments. Again, I will judge the activity. I kind of know what response we've had on the property when it comes up. So, you know, the intelligence, the data tells me whether we've got, you know, 20 people viewed it or one person viewed it. You know, we'll look at that, and we'll obviously try and get to the point where we hit reserve price as quickly as possible. And you'll probably find as the bidding progresses, you'll get 2 or 3 people that might start the process, fall by the wayside, and you'll very quickly work down to just 2 remaining bidders. And, you know, I have to say, sometimes you can see something where they both won't let go. So you could spend 45 minutes bidding up in 500s and 1000s on occasions. So you might jump it 2, 3, 5 grand to see just how people are reacting. You know, you're exploring all the time. You know, you're finding where the point of no return is for somebody. So, you know, you will just use your judgments and, you know, have note of where the reserves are to make sure you get those people on reserve price or better.
Interesting. Claire, there you go. Ian, what's next?
Damien asked about online auctions, and he is hopeful that the auction fees will surely come down considerably. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think if you look at what is charged generally, traditional auction houses don't charge that much compared to some of the modern method. I personally think some of the fees charged in modern method are too high, but again, that reflects the fact that you're not only paying the auctioneer, you're also paying the agent that's introduced the business to the auctioneer from that fee. If you look at what we charge, generally speaking, you'll have the seller paying a commission fee, and then the auction, buyer's premium for us is around just under £1,000 plus VAT, which is quite an industry standard. Some will be less, some will be higher. In the special conditions, you will find some sellers will pass some of their legal expenses onto the buyer. But again, if we know that at the start, these are all cost factors that we build into setting the guide to reflect that. So if we have a seller who's being a little bit heavy-handed with the fees, let's say someone's put £5,000 in the specials, I can assure you as the buyers, we'll take that into consideration in setting guide and reserve. Well, we'll certainly try, put it that way.
Yeah.
Fantastic. There you go, Damien. Richie.
Okay. What are the advantages? Josh asks. Josh says, what are the advantages of buying at auction compared with through an agent? Do you think you get a better deal? So this is the whole question. Should we go to auctions or should we just go to agents?
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, I think what I would say to you, we get asked this all the time. Someone will ring up and they see a property and they go, why is it, almost challenging us, why is it going to auction? And you think, okay, how do I politely answer this? There's a very good chance, Josh, that if it wasn't going to auction, you wouldn't even know about it. Because if it's that good, there's a strong chance there will be a bank of clients that the agent already has who we will pass that property to. And you probably find a great majority of people won't even know that it's come up for sale. Now, an auction does give everybody a fair and equal opportunity to bid. It's a very transparent platform. It really takes away the ability of selective selling or favoured marketing to buyers. So it does give everyone a fair and equal chance. But Josh, it's down to what you see the value of the property to you. If it's going to be for personal use and it's an absolute gem, then you'll pay what you believe it to be worth for you.
There's a follow-up to Josh's question. Chris says, is it just not the rubbish and cast-offs that go to auction?
No, it's not actually. I've actually got major clients who are some of the most productive and wealthiest private landlords and investors in the country who will take their properties to auction as the first port of call. And the reason for that, one, they know when the hammer goes down, they've legally exchanged. It's a very quick and efficient way to get a really good property out into the public domain. And if you've got shareholders to account for, it really gives you a wonderful opportunity to say that had its chance, it's maximised its opportunity. If you're the MD of a big investment company and the shareholders are demanding that you get the very best price, well, what better a way to say that everybody had their chance to go and bid? That's what we achieved.
Chris, I'd agree with that. I think that's a little bit of almost a myth or an old wives' tale that the rubbish is at the auction. And it happens in anything. A lot of people say if you want to go and buy a car, go to the auction, it's all the rubbish. It's not. You go to all the fleet companies. That's where they probably get rid of the most serviced, the best organised, cleanest, tidiest cars out there. I totally agree with Russell. Okay, Ian, what's next?
I got one in from Himat, evening Himat, who asks, do I get to look at the properties beforehand? How does this work? So what's the kind of process here in an auction?
Yeah. Yes, you do, Himat. Obviously, with COVID and the restrictions being a little bit more flexible now, we do operate a very safe environment. So we will allocate certain days and certain times where we will be at the property. You will be given a time slot to attend, which enables you to look around the property on your own, being uninhibited by a dozen other people dodging each other in a small confined space. So yes, we will. I will say it does mean you're going to have to be a bit organised with your diary, because if you're covering a very large area, you're probably allowing an hour to 2 hours now for a very popular property per day to be viewed. So we might give each buyer a 10-15 minute time slot, internally, and let them look as long as they wish outside. So yes, you do. Don't wait to the last minute though. Try and get in early. Give yourself as much time to do what research and diligence you need to try and view as early as possible in the cycle.
And is that any different, Russell, for modern methods? Presumably, we can still go and view all of those properties. That's no different, just because they're online.
Absolutely, and to be fair, it's I'm not gonna sort of speak ill of that process. It's just as good an opportunity. If there's something there through that process that you like, then most definitely get out and have a look at it, because again, somebody at some point is going to make a decision on the offer that you make, and you do need to have a look at what you're actually going to see. We can only tell you so much. We can only tell you what we know. And from that point of view, if you see firsthand something you don't like, then that's down to you. You can make your decisions.
And I think that's interesting. And guys, all the you guys that are listening to this, as Russell said, you could get 10 minutes in the property. And to be honest, even if you've got an hour, you need to be organised. And something we always teach our students is what you're going to go and look at, particularly if you're a new developer, because you might think, what am I looking at? So you need to understand when you're going to go to that property, what am I looking at? What's my checklist? What photographs do I need to take? What videos, so I can get in and get out? I've got my allotted time and I've got all the information I need. So I haven't got to keep thinking, I've got to go back, because you might not have time. Okay.
Just very quickly, Rich, on that point, we are doing very high quality HD video tours of a lot of the properties, and also 3D, real time dimensional floor plans. So you can, in most of those cases, if a property's 70 miles down the road and we're handling it, you probably will be able to go on and click and look at the 3D tour and actually walk through that property as if you were in it. It's that good a quality.
Good. And you can guarantee it's the same building. It's not just one that you photoshopped.
No, absolutely. Yeah, they are done independently. Yeah, I'm not that clever at IT, Rich, I promise you.
Well, there you go. I believe you. Okay, Jolyon says, hi, Russell. As rumours go, well, this sounds controversial. As rumours go, when a lot is struggling, an auctioneer has to work the room to try and get the lot towards its reserve and secure the sale for both parties. Does this, or can this, happen in online auctions?
Yeah. Very rarely. I actually don't operate the platform. It's an automated platform, so it takes bids, by people pressing a bid key. So from that point of view, come auction day, I'm actually watching the property develop as you are. So in most cases, you'll find that almost every bid is a live bid. If we've got a property that's not getting the level of interest, the one thing I can assure you we don't necessarily want to do is to run, or to use a process to run the bidding higher than the actual value of the property might prove to be. Quite often we might have to go back to the seller and go, look, I'm really sorry, but there wasn't interest at the figures you've indicated. So you've got to be sensible when it comes to that. But people will bid, and if they don't bid enough, if the reserve isn't met, then it goes unsold, and we will come and talk to you afterwards.
There you go, John. Have we got time, Ian? Let's do one more question. I think we can fit one more in. If you're going to make it a good one, Ian. And guys, look, whilst Ian's looking for this, I'm sorry we don't get all the questions done. I know you've put a lot of questions in this evening, but Ian, what's the last one?
I've got a great one. This one is from Helen. Good evening, Helen. And Helen asks, what's the best way of getting notified of upcoming auction lots?
Yeah. Get yourself on our automated alert list. That is the key. That's the first thing that goes out. And get to know the auctioneers in the area of your search. That is key. We are humans. Pick up the phone, talk to us. We can't give you preferential treatment like an agent may do, but we can certainly give you the heads up or tell you the days to look on a website when everything turns live.
I can actually vouch for that, Ian. Russell is human. I have met him. I've had the pleasure of having a couple of beers and a bite to eat with him. He definitely eats and drinks. He is entirely human. Entirely human.
Fantastic. Good to know. Helen, hope that answered your question. I'm sure it does.
Guys, that's all we've got time for. Russell, have you enjoyed it?
I always enjoy this, Rich. I hope I can help people. You know, I just want to give people the chance of giving them a chance, you know, and that's the key thing.
Give me a wave, give me a hands up if you've enjoyed it tonight, if you've enjoyed Russell's conversation, his question answering us on. Oh, unusually, no hands gone up, Russell. That's surprising. No one's enjoyed it this evening. I do apologise. Without doubt, all the hands are flying up and down. They're turning them on and off. They're trying to make me dizzy. Russell, what's the best way for people to contact you? We will put your details in the show notes, but what's the best way they can contact you?
Probably you can actually just give us a call, give the office a call when our wonderful Skype system is working, unlike this afternoon. So call us on 02380 338066, then choose option 3 for the auction department and speak to myself, Rachel or Peter. You know, we'll be very happy to add you to the alert list, and you'll get to see what's coming up. I would say if you're looking in the Hampshire area, next auction, we have got some belters. We have got some absolute cracking lots that will not disappoint.
Oh, interesting. He's bound to say that, though, isn't he? But now you've got no choice. We have to contact you if we're interested and find out.
There'll be some good stuff there.
Good stuff. Russell, if it's okay with you, we'll put your details all in the show notes so people can contact you. Thank you for coming, and we will get you back. We'll get you back again at some point. So enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much for coming.
Good luck. Speak to you soon.
Cheers.
Wow, that was good, wasn't it?
Excellent. Some top tips. Well, we better get signed up for next month's auction.
I've now forgiven him for calling me Ian twice.
Yeah, I've forgiven him too, Robert.
Yeah, it's just. Yeah, I really didn't think I was that tall, but obviously sometimes clearly people mistake me for being your sort of height. But
it was that mention of grow bags early on, I think, did it?
I think it was. Guys, hopefully you've enjoyed the show. Please pop in the chat box if you have enjoyed the show. We always like to see that. Put the show on for you guys. It's out there for you. So pop up in the chat box if you've enjoyed it. If you haven't enjoyed it, don't put anything rude in the chat box because I'll get terribly upset and it'll ruin the rest of my evening. So there we go. That was Russell this evening. His notes will go in. His contact details will go in the show notes. If anyone is interested in property and you want to get into property, come and join us completely for free. We've got a few 3-hour sessions. If you're interested, come and join us. It has absolutely no cost, and we'll tell you all about development. I think we've got some next week. And the link, if you're interested, propertyceo.co.uk/roadmap, and you can come and spend 3 hours with myself and Ian. What is not to like about that? So I have some good and some bad news. The good news is that the next show is going to happen, but the bad news is it's not next week, guys. I'm afraid we're not around next week. There is a terrible excuse, but it's one that I'm afraid I have to share with you. Next Thursday is the Goodwood Festival of Speed. And as much as I love you guys and I want to be here, I'm just slightly concerned that I might not make it back in time from the show to do the show. So I have chosen Goodwood Festival Speed over you guys. Gotta be honest.
How do you feel? How do you feel?
I'm a petrol head. I have to do it. So the next show, guys, will be on the 15th, Thursday, the 15th of July at 7 o'clock. So please come and join us then. Have you enjoyed tonight's show, Ian?
I've absolutely enjoyed it. Is the next one going to be a 2-hour special to atone for your absence next week?
No, it'll be the normal 45 minutes. Quick fire questions and thoroughly enjoyable. So, guys, thank you very much. What's going on here? Ash says, thank you very much. Enjoyed the show. Great guest, Russell. Love the questions. Hannah said, thank you for all the answers. Enjoyed the show. Damien says, disgraceful. Disgraceful, Damien. What do you mean disgraceful? It's the Goodwood Festival of Speed. One has to go. Lord March invited me personally. Jonathan says, great, thanks. Solomon says, thank you. Good night. Oh, he's off to bed already. Have an early night, Solomon. Best of luck. Randy from Property Investor News says, thank you, boys. Boys, oh, as usual. Another great show. Dan says, great show, guys. Thanks. Paul says, yes, I have. Many thanks. Always. Not sure what that is. Oh, have you enjoyed it? Thank you, gentlemen. You always consistently great, says Raj. And grazie, says Michael. Kids' bedtime routine, says Solomon. Okay, you better go and get those to bed, Solomon. I don't have any kids anymore. They're all grown up, but have a bedtime routine, so I'll be off to do that myself. See you guys. See you in 2 weeks. Good night now. Bye-bye.
Bye.